One in five suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays.
We're Marla and Dave. That'll make me Dave if it's not obvious. Marla
And
is over here, my beautiful co-host.
Always. And that's it now. I've been just reduced to co-host. I don't even. Anyway, yes, I'm Marla, and I'm. We are always excited and happy when Monday rolls around. You know,
Indeed.
Monday is a day that a lot of people dread, but to be totally honest with you, Monday has taken on such a purpose for us that it's one I look forward. Some Sunday night, I'm like, hey, tomorrow's Mental Health Mondays.
You guys, I want to remind you that Mental Health Mondays is a partnership between the show Mental Health Mondays and Loving Beyond Reason, as well as NAMI San Fernando Valley. And we want you to remember that we need your support, bringing you this type of information, this type of education, this type of entertainment. And the wonderful guests that we bring to each week. We need your support. Stop by the Mental Health Mondays GoFundMe page so that we can keep doing this for you. We have a great guest for you today. Her name is Yashi Brown. She's an awesome individual. Matter of fact, we're going to get into it. She might have been the first person that Marla and I heard even refer to NAMI.
She was. We'll talk a little bit about our story.
And we will talk about that. But she's an author, a writer, a poet, a public speaker, a leading voice in the mental health space. And she's been doing that ever since 2011. Her poetry became her chosen creative expression upon experiencing severe bipolar depression and mania symptoms as a young adult. Fueled by a burning desire to feel empowered and her deep spirituality, she realized her path to recovery. And today, again, she's an award-winning mental health advocate, artist, and public speaker. When we come back, we'll have our conversation with Yashi Brown. Don't move.
Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
Hey guys, listen up. Learn something.
Well, Yashi, it's been such a long time since we've connected, and we're excited to have you. Welcome to Mental Health Mondays.
Absolutely.
Hi. I know it was really surprising hearing from you guys. I can't believe it's been that long. It's like 2013 or something, like a long time.
It's been a while.
Well, we're also in the pandemic bubble, so time and space is warping. At least it is for me. The perception of it is warping for me.
It's very well said. Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
It's time is going to its rightful place where it doesn't exist. So.
Exactly.
That is true.
Which leaves us in need to connect with old friends and friends that we haven't spoken to in a while, and we're so glad that we have reconnected with you because in the intro, I don't know if you heard, but I was saying that I think when we thought about it as we were driving over here, we first heard of NAMI through you. Yeah.
And probably, yeah.
Yeah, and at the time, it seemed like a strange thing, and I didn't want to say that now it's become popular because we are really consider ourselves and people like you soldiers in the war against the stigma of mental health issues and mental illness, and you seem to be at the forefront at such a young age, talking about it openly when most at the time, not very few people were.
No, yeah. When I started opening up, it was February of 2011. I'll never forget. And I had went over to the NAMI headquarters actually in Arlington, Virginia. My mom had done some live work out in the area in the DC area, but I went and I met with at the time Patrick Fitz. What was his? He was then the executive director.
Okay.
Fitzpatrick, I know was his
of NAMI National.
Was his name, and NAMI National, and Darcy, and that's where we started a collaborating on how we were going to
bring this message.
Bring awareness through the poetry that I had, produced and that I had put out there, and how I was going to tell my story and reach out to the different affiliates. And so much has happened since then as far as the work that I'd done. But NAMI at the time was already very much so a leader and already known for their work and their, grassroots efforts in this whole mental health thing. So when I decided that I was going to talk about it, they were the first ones that I reached out to, and I made some really amazing friendships.
I love that. I love that.
And so at such a, so basically we just want to back up just a little bit because we, are blessed to know
Michael Fitzpatrick.
I knew that was bothering you. She was digging for it. She's like, I'm going to pull this out of here. I'm going to pull it down.
All right. Okay.
No, so by all means, but plug one more time. Michael. It was Michael.
Oh no, yeah, he was the former, okay. But yeah, I had a lot, to do during the time when I was coming up as an advocate. Yeah,
awesome.
And endorsed my book and all that. Yeah.
So I wondered if you could just take us back just a little bit, because I know that first, dealing with and accepting, or even it's not even accepting. I think in the beginning, it's understanding that there's a brain difference or a something that may not be what I don't even call it illness anymore. I call it brain balance, where there's an expectation that within this scope. But for you, you mentioned how far back that was. Take us back just a little bit to your first awareness that there could be something that that Yashi needed to deal with that was a little bit different.
I really didn't have an awareness. I would have to say that it was my family telling me that it was time for me to go seek professional help, because I was starting to speak in ways that they had never heard before. I wasn't making sense. And it was the beginning of what ended up being a really severe psychotic break.
Now, was that the first time you had experienced something like that?
It was the first time. I had, up until that point, I had experienced depression, but there was no talk about mental health in my family. So I wasn't even aware of what I was experiencing had a title. I just thought I was sad, and I didn't understand why I was sad all the time. And I didn't understand what was happening with my moods. I was very, this is when I was in my early 20s, and I didn't know there was a name for what was going on. Mental health wasn't talked about in my family. Nobody really, depression wasn't a word that was used, that was really known of. So everything that we did, like a lot of Black families, actually.
I was going to say in our community. That's a fair statement.
Faith-based.
Right.
So if you're having issues, if there's trauma, if there's trouble, you need to pray more, and you need to, rely on God more, which honestly is the truth. It is the truth. However, you still need to understand that there's a clinical aspect to this, that when it gets into the more serious aspects that have to be treated alongside the spiritual part, which the spiritual part usually is the precursor on some metaphysical level, I do believe. But we have to realize we have a physical chemical vehicle here, and the brain is a physical chemical vehicle as well that has to be treated, and
an organ
as such.
Yes.
Okay. So if we're not doing that, then we're only half, doing ourselves justice here. Right. And for the most part, probably not getting to the core of how we can truly help ourselves. And that's where professional treatment comes into play. And it can come into play in many different forms. But yeah, I wasn't aware of that other aspect, and it was quite a journey.
Well, we're gonna Yashi, we're gonna hold for right. We're about to go to a break. And when we come back, I want to kind of stay on this same conversation, because I want to talk about what it took, the trust that you had to actually to allow your family to recognize something that you were able to respond to, and because that's a question we get asked all the time. We'll be right back after this break. Don't move. More with Yashi Brown.
When Dave and Marla get together, it's hot.
You may not realize it, but these words, often used to describe someone with a mental health condition, can be very harmful. In a country where 1 in 5 people are affected by a mental health condition, it's time for all of us to step up and change the conversation. Just because someone's struggle isn't obvious on the outside doesn't mean they aren't hurting on the inside. We need to see the person, not the condition. Join with me, pledge to be stigma-free.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave.
It's a common misconception that people who suffer from mental illness are violent and unpredictable. Here are the facts.
According to mentalhealth.gov, the vast majority of people with mental health problems are not more likely to be violent than anyone else. In fact, most people with mental illnesses are not violent, and only 3 to 5% of violent acts can be attributed to individuals living with a serious mental illness.
People with severe mental illnesses are actually over 10 times more likely to be victims of violent crime than the general population. You probably know someone with a mental health issue and don't even realize it, because many people with mental health problems are highly active and productive members of our communities.
Maybe, just maybe, it's about time to reconsider how we think about mental illness and the people who suffer with it.
This message is brought to you by Mental Health Mondays, along with NAMI San Fernando Valley and Loving Beyond Reason.
David is a thinker.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically wear my personality on my sleeve.
But when Marla and Dave get together,
It's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
Well, just like we promised you, back with the beautiful Yashi Brown. So Yashi, she does deserve that every time. We need like the wave. One of the things that, as I have too become an advocate, and I get a lot of questions, and people write in, and they mostly are usually asking me about the relationship with how we have gotten our son to accept and comply to certain things that he needs to do to stay in a safe place with his challenges and issues. So when I heard you say what you said in our, before we went to the break, you said I know that there was something, but my family recognized, and that I was speaking and saying things that they were unfamiliar with, and you took what they were telling you in trust and took it to the next step of going for help and treatment. What is can you speak to that at all?
And was that a difficult process
Yes.
for you to trust what they were saying? And like Marla was saying, since we've been through that with our own son, we can see the struggle with him trying to, man, are what my parents telling me true? It doesn't feel like that to me. So was that a difficult thing for you to do, to trust what they were saying and accept the help?
I think it was the way it happened. They had my sister do it. And it was very clear that I wasn't feeling good, that I was not really happy. And so she said, I think there's somewhere that you can go right now that will help you feel much better than you're feeling right now. A place for individuals that are going through something very similar. And it caught me off guard that there would be a place for people that were feeling, because I was like, how do you know how I'm feeling inside?
Right,
but at the same time, I wasn't feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
I was really confused. I was in a psychosis. At the same time, I was getting the attention that really psychosis is seeking sometimes. You don't even realize it was
That's
subconscious.
deep.
Yeah. And so I was sticking with that. I was very much so compelled to move forward by that love that I don't know at the time if I saw it as love, but it was finally I was being heard.
Yeah.
And it was, and the way she put it again was so non-accusatory. It was so loving, and it was in a way that was almost kind of like, how can you not want to try this and see what there is to it?
You know, the thing that you touched on.
It seemed like there was something that she didn't make me feel bad about myself.
Right. Yeah, and I was going to say the thing that you touched on earlier. We who are people of faith and we believe that God is always there, and it's amazing how even in your awareness now you understand that people when they have a psychotic break, they're not really, and they're that manic, they're not really usually in a mindset to listen, but because God allows your sister to be in that position and your family in general to love you in the way that they did, it just cut through.
It really did. And there was some resistance to my parents in other ways at the time that later came out. These are things that you grow up with and issues that you don't really talk about.
Yeah.
And so all of those things came to the front. But this was a journey. It wasn't a straight line. And there was a lot of zigzagging. After I got out, I ended up not taking my meds for some time period, but then I started working in this, got a secular position that was able to be very much so a form of treatment in a weird way. It was able to get me off my brain, and worked as far as my self-esteem was concerned, and was able to acclimate and get me back into the real world in a very interesting way. And at the time I met my ex-husband, but at the time, it was when I was still growing. And so I was still learning. And when things started to move forward positive for me, I said, well, that was just a nervous breakdown. I don't have mental illness. So that was the zigzag part. And of course, things started to unravel in my life. And then when I started to go through my divorce, symptoms came back. And out of nowhere, I had another relapse. And that's when I realized, okay, there's something to this. This isn't just a one-off. And then I had to start really treating these symptoms. So it took some years for me to realize medicine is how you protect yourself when you have the more severe symptoms that myself and people like me experience. You realize as you grow up, if you really want to have a good quality of day and quality of life, there is some treatment in the form of medication that can help make things a lot easier. Okay, a lot easier. And when it comes to stigma, this is where stigma is its worst, is when it comes to medication and feeling free to talk about medication. That's the next era.
Okay, and we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that next.
We're still on just it's okay to not feel good.
Right.
Absolutely.
We're gonna do that next, Yashi. We got to go to another break. Stay right there and remember that. We're going to transition to that when we come back. We'll be right back.
Perfect. All right, Marla, the fun music means what?
It's time for me to dance?
No, the other meaning.
Oh, it's poll time.
There you go. It's time for the poll question. The poll question last week was, what percentage of all global diseases are either mental, neurological, or substance abuse disorders? Your options were A, 3%, B, 7%, or C, 10%. Now, usually,
Dave, in keeping, we have to always ask our guest to give a shot at the answer. So, Yashi, will ask you again.
The question, Yashi, was what percentage of all global diseases are either a mental, neurologic, or substance abuse disorders? Your options are A, 3%, B, 7%, or C, 10%. What's your guess?
10.
Well, you know what? Spoken like a true mental health expert, she is absolutely correct. Ding, ding, ding.
That is the answer.
Unfortunately, that number is way too high, and that's why we're working to keep those numbers down, bring you all this information so that you know what to do if you face some of these issues. Now, what's the new poll question for next week, Marla?
The new poll question, because always a chance for you to cast your vote around here with Dave and I. How much money does the global economy lose every year due to depression and anxiety? A, 500 billion.
Wow.
B, 1 trillion. Or C, 2 trillion. And I'll ask it again. How much money does the global economy lose every year due to depression and anxiety?
Yashi, what would you say your guess would be?
I believe when it comes to mental health, the global, I think it's the highest.
So you're saying 2 trillion?
I believe
there's 2 trillion, 1 trillion, or
and
500 billion. Those are the choices.
I think it's I again.
She's going with 2 trillion.
I usually go, but I'm familiar with the percentages, not so much digits.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, here's the good news.
So I don't know. But I'm gonna go with the highest.
Okay, so that's 2 trillion, and guess what, Yashi? You're not going to know
until next week. Again, you guys, please. Absolutely. It's way too much. That number's too high. Stop by the Mental Health GoFundMe page. Always the link right below this. We'll be right back. All right, Yashi, now you've been doing an amazing job just teeing up every part of this discussion that we're about to say. You head right into it perfectly. And so we are, it's actually amazing.
Seriously.
It's as if, Yashi, get out of my mind.
Right. There she goes again. Put that down.
Absolutely.
So what you just said, we have yet to broach here on our show, but it is one of the most important conversations that any of us can have when it comes to mental wellness.
Yes.
And the conversation surrounding medication. And when I tell you this has been our greatest family struggle, and we're very transparent. And at one point I was at my most frustrated state with dealing with my son when he was in crisis, and several family members were, he just needs to identify more with Christ, and finally one day I just lost it and said, is Jesus in the pills? Because when he was on his medication, we were fine, and now all of a sudden he's not. So I just don't understand why we have gotten to the point where it has to be one or the other instead of in conjunction with each other. It's mind, body, and spirit is a whole picture. It's not one thing. And when you're in what I have learned, and you can jump in and correct me at any moment, my experience with DJ in particular, and I'll remind everybody, our son's actual diagnosis is bipolar 1 with schizoaffective disorder or psychotic features.
We have the same.
Okay. And so when we weren't even able to communicate on the same plane of reasoning when he was off his meds, to be able to, for him to even accept other treatments that would just deal with more therapies that may be effective, even in the way that he eats and in the way that he, is willing to or not willing to exercise. We just couldn't get through. So I just almost felt like medication was a balancing necessity to be able to allow other things to be introduced to encourage his mental wellness.
Right.
So I want to talk about the medicine and what your perspective is on that with your experience.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. To be in a place of, being able to meditate and read, contemplative, and be spiritual, you have to have, to some degree, your mind. And when you don't have your mind, you can't even get to first base. And so for some of us, this is why it's not a one size fits all when it comes to mental health, because everyone is dealing with a unique situation. One person's mental health situation may not include something as severe as psychotic features, but psychotic features change what you're even thinking about coherently. You're not in the same place and time as your neighbor.
Right.
And so until you're all on Wednesday at 5:00, you know, sitting down eating dinner, unless you're all on that page, you really can't do much. And so people just need to understand that this is a very complex, the brain is complex, human beings are complex, and so mental health is very unique to the situation. And when the diagnosis is bipolar or schizophrenia, schizoaffective, dissociative disorder, some of the serious ones, again, medicine allows family members to interact with the individual. Now, is it only medicine? We're getting into a time where there's a lot of different modalities that are coming up. And I know of a lot of people that are really big, putting a lot of money into research when it comes to shrooms, microdosing. There's a lot of new modalities with ketamine. These are very controversial, but at the same time, these studies are going on in very protected settings for a reason, because they're seeing some individuals that might be resistant to some of these other forms and these new generation of medicines. They might be showing some, good signs in some of these areas and some of these trial studies. And it could be a bridge to other types of medications, but we're all learning. We have to all be patient and realize that there is no one size fits all, but at the same time, medication, you can't give up. You have to be vigilant. And this is where prayer did help me. I prayed finally for the right medications to come, for the doctor to help me. So instead of running away from a diagnosis like I was previous,
you opened yourself up to it. Yeah.
My discharge paperwork, it got so bad that I finally was like, doctor, please, if there's a medicine, I need it. I want it. I don't want to feel this way. If there are people, and I was doing research as much as I could to find there are success stories, there are cases, like how can I do that? And I said, if I was able to ever get better, I'd have to help somebody else. And so that's what eventually happened. I did get better.
Well, we love that, Yashi. We're going to have to hold it right there. And as usual, you have left us with so many nuggets, just gems.
This is why we have parts 1 and part wisdom. 2, because
absolutely. And we want to let you guys know that Yashi is going to be on with us again for next week. But don't move anywhere. We're going to have more with our discussion with Yashi coming up in just a second.
Bad.
Worthless.
Don't trust them. They'll hurt you. You're worthless.
It's pointless.
When the pain of schizophrenia meets hope, everything can change. Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
In that last segment, Yashi, you literally touched on so many things. I want to point out at least 2 of them that you said. You said it's not a one-size-fits-all. Everybody's personal situation with their mental health issues or their brain difference is not going to be exactly like somebody else's. And 2, you have to stick with it. That is, man, it was just amazing. We want to let you guys know that while Yashi's our guest this week, she's going to come back for next week. We're going to record that shortly, as well as we're going to focus a little bit more on some of the artistic sides of Miss Yashi Brown and some of her poetry and other things that she is bringing to this world as the beautiful light that she is.
Indeed. Thank you guys so much. And Yashi, we're just one quick, brief encouraging moment to end this segment from you. Go. For anybody listening.
Oh gosh. Just, I guess, don't give up. And it's so easy to say don't give up. But the thing is that really is what it's all about. Is about learning, living, and progressing in a way where you're learning about yourself and you're growing. It's going to be challenges, but it's to make you better. It makes you stronger. And when you feel that strength, you realize there's something you can give now to another human being. And everything is about giving to somebody else and spreading the love, spreading the knowledge. So whatever it is you are going through, as you are learning, as you are growing, these are opportunities to be of service to yourself and your neighbor and those around you.
Well,
Thank
that's
you so
awesome.
much.
And so there you go. So we're going to let Yashi have the last word. But remember, don't move. We're going to have Yashi. Look forward to episode 2. More with Yashi Brown in the next episode. See you next week.
See you guys later.
Bye. Thank you for having me.